Okay, so first question, simple one. Have you always wanted to work in the IT industry?
Yeah, I mean, how do you define always?
Well, I don't know. I think one person I spoke to, they'd been given I can't remember if they'd been given a computer or by the age of 4, they were already headed down that route. So I don't know if that was as early for you or no. When did you sort of take an interest in the IT space?
Um, I would say I chose STEM around about high school time. So I knew I wanted to go and do a degree in physics. My maths teacher at the time, Mrs. Romes, sent me on a women in engineering event at the local university. And I think before then I was just an overall student, right? I just loved every subject. I hadn't really narrowed down what I wanted to specialize in. And I think, no one had ever specifically pushed me away from STEM fields, but also there was just kind of a pull that I was being pushed away until I got sent to this women engineering event. And then I thought like, oh, actually, robots are cool and stuff. And yeah, then I knew I definitely wanted to go into it, science and technology.
Okay, and so from that point to where you are today at Kubrick, if you can give us a sort of potted history of where so sounds like you went into education and did something IT or technology related, and then from there into the workplace, and as I say, how you've ended up where you are today.
Yeah, so I did go on to study physics. I really wanted to be an academic. I did a PhD in particle physics. I didn't find the Higgs boson for my thesis, but I found a spot where it definitely wasn't, and that result did help us to confirm where it was once CERN discovered it. So that was quite cool. I learned a lot about technology there. I mean, I did everything. I loved being really hands-on and actually installing detector components and soldering and all that good, really technical stuff, building circuit boards, playing with fiber optic cables. I really loved that aspect of it. But there aren't a lot of jobs in academia. There's jobs for about 10% of the people who want them. So at that point, I knew I needed to make a fairly radical career change, and I joined a graduate scheme. And I actually moved from the US to the UK, and I joined the PwC graduate scheme. It was a split scheme with financial accounting and auditing and data assurance. I meant to go into the data assurance side, but it turns out there was a slight mix-up with my visa, and so to not get deported, I had to become a chartered accountant along the way.
That's your excuse, is it?
That's my excuse. Yep. No, so I did that. That wound up being a great thing, and I wound up being a great thing for where I am at Kubrick, because I do really understand, what a graduate scheme is like for a lot of the people who go through that. Since then, I bounced around financial services, things like credit risk, spent a lot of time doing modeling and working with technology in there. Most recently, I worked at a major bank, working in financial crime compliance. But the way I wound up at Kubrick was wherever I had worked, I had wound up setting up a training program. And so Kubrick is, sort of a training company fundamentally. And I thought I might as well get paid for that full time. And it kind of brings me back to, the academic dreams of being Professor Sarah at some point as well.
Okay, and in terms of just quickly training, it's a broad subject. I mean, are they focused on training people in the technology sector, or is it broader
Yeah,
than that?
absolutely. So Kubrick was founded to sort of solve the digital skills crisis. And we look at sort of main areas of technology. As head of AI, I particularly look after the machine learning engineers, and all the technology that supports them.
Okay, and so this wasn't actually on my sort of to-do list in terms of what to ask you, but because of you're in that training business, you'll have a perspective as to who comes on your courses. So you're aware from that point of view that is it still a fairly male heavy attendance on courses or yeah.
It is. Yeah, in some areas it's getting better. It's with any career path, and you'll see it anywhere, there are more women at the very junior level, and I'm pretty lonely at the more senior level. That is something we're trying to change. I know Kubrick has a huge commitment to diversity. We have something like 36% of our consultants are female or non-binary. So I think for the tech industry, that's actually pretty good. And it is something we try to do. And we are partners with Women in Data, which is a fantastic organization. And we do try to address diversity for gender and for other areas as well.
And just I'm interested, do any of your clients get you involved to help with that diversity issue as well, to offer training and to improve? They do, yeah.
Yeah, we've had some really interesting conversations, and I think, well, me in particular, because I am a woman in data. So how did you go about that? Yeah, we've had some really interesting conversations. Everything from, you know, what do your job descriptions look like, to what support do you have available internally, to do you have female leaders who are visible within the organization, which is a big one.
Okay, and then in terms of your own sort of career to date, so you sort of arrived in the IT space, but via PwC, so sort of finance, accounting, all that stuff. So be interested just generally in your career in terms of any challenges you've encountered, whether or not they might have been, you know, gender related, and have you noticed any difference at all between that world and the world of IT?
Yeah, I mean, I think physics is probably the closer comparison to IT in terms of gender balance. Yeah. You know, look, I have all the technical problems too. I have the Python packages going out of date. I have I have all of those. But yeah, look, the first time I was called a token female in a STEM setting, I was about 16. And the most recent time was about 2 weeks ago. Yeah, I've had days where I don't speak to another woman occasionally. Yeah, I've had a lot of ridiculous comments to my face, right? I've been told to sit there and look pretty. I get called that fiery redhead, things like that, which I suspect is rather gendered. I've had my hashtag Me Too moments. It's tough. There are challenges. I have to walk into the room credential first, you know, to prove myself time and time again. Like, of course, men have to prove themselves, but there's a prove it again bias that women face, that I certainly see from experience, and I know the research supports. For example, the What Works for Women at Work series at Stanford has done a lot of research on that.
And have you noticed, I mean, sadly, you said you had comments from, or noticed it from way back when to even, I think, was it a week or so ago. So clearly it's still not perfect. I think we're all aware of that.
No.
But have you noticed at least some level of improvement as you've gone through your career, or are you a bit depressed that it?
Yeah. I mean, the fact that we're having this conversation now, right? This is, I think, is progress. The fact that we sort of say, yeah, this is a thing now, and we can sort of explicitly talk about these concepts. I think that didn't happen, but I think even look at the Me Too movement in other industries, but of course it applies here as well. That's all been shockingly recent, and especially at more senior levels. You know, these things take time to trickle through, I'm sure, but 20 years ago, I didn't have any female professors in the physics department. There are still none. There are still not, you know, there are some amazing technical female role models out there, but not as many as I'd like. They're still very notable.
And so in terms of how things can be improved, again, through your experience and you know, with your training, you get to, of course, you must see a lot of company cultures, etc. Just, do you have some thoughts as to what you'd like to see to help improve the situation?
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the things we do, like partnering with Women in Data, is quite a lot of the solutions tend to be women go fix yourselves. And I don't think that's it. There's certainly things we can be doing. There's certainly things that we can take away, you know, yes, overcoming your imposter syndrome and do your personal branding and stuff like that. But it's also, it does have to come from the culture as well. There are good bits of proven advice. Like I do know, being aware of the biases that we're going to face, the fact that I know I'm going to be judged on the exact same behaviors differently from my male colleagues. Does that suck? Sure. But at least being aware of it and having some strategies to confront that that matters a lot. And I think, you know, trying to be involved in discussions and to not give an unrealistic view of, for example, young women entering the workforce now are consultants. They are going to face challenges, right? And I think pretending that that isn't the case won't help them. But then also saying, oh, but, you know, just tell HR and they'll solve all the problems for you. Well, that's also not the strategy either, because you have to navigate this. There's a lot of nuance. You have to build these working relationships. So I think women sharing what works, having men who are allies is very important, who understand that, you know, in the same way that I can understand that racism is dumb and harmful, men can understand that, you know, gender inequality is dumb and harmful. That's all very important.
And in terms of that sort of culture point of view, is what needs to be, I mean, clearly there are lots of, you know, activities from, I guess, you know, governments sort of led downwards, but they're not, for whatever reason, cutting through. Do you have any thoughts as to what the problem is? It just a generational, is it just that everyone over a certain age just, you know, grew up with certain attitudes and it's very difficult to, you know, educate those out, but as younger folks enter the workforce, things might get better because they have a different outlook? Or yeah, how can things be?
No, I don't think it's generational. I don't think there's anything magic about age. If anything, I find sometimes people find that experience says, oh yeah, actually women are normal humans and they can do all this technical stuff too. Let's see, why isn't it working? I think part of the problem is just there are still so few women. It's a concept that I alluded to earlier. It is tokenization. If I am the one woman, then everything I do represents all women. And if I don't know that one concept, then women don't know that concept. And that's a big burden. And I understand why a lot of women don't feel like fighting that every day. What I've read, and I'm perfectly happy to be challenged on this, is that sort of once you get past tokenization, once you get to something like around 30% of the workforce is female, then that stops happening a bit. And I have experienced that in my career, that once you sort of get a snowball effect of, oh yeah, actually, there's nothing magical, special, different about being a woman. They, you know, we are just as technical, we are just as competent. Maybe we even bring different things to the table. Once you gain that momentum and once that snowballs, then you can really have a thriving culture. And so places where I've worked that have, you know, even 30% of the workplace sort of gets you over that tokenization barrier. And it starts to be just not an issue anymore. And I'd love to see that happen more places. And I think the other thing is, you know, if you can't see it, you can't be it. So you need to see women in leadership. You need to see women in technical roles, doing technical things, saying, you know, here I am, I can do this. And I don't love, you know, the spotlight. I'm not trying to be a YouTube influencer or anything like that, but I also know that it would have mattered to younger me to see me. So I need to do that. I need to let other women know that, yeah, actually this is a great career path. You can like make loads of money here. You can have an exciting, interesting, challenging career with interesting problems to solve every day. You can do it. There are some drawbacks, but you can get through it.
And in terms of that sort of the visibility aspect, I mean, I think you said even now you're not aware of any physics professors from, you know, where you graduated. So is there a problem there as well, that there are a lack of role models for people going through the education? So I mean, I'd be also, sorry, I'd be interested. So your peers, when it became obvious, you know, to them that you were going in this direction, were they all like accepting, hey, yeah, great, or were they all like, wow, that's brave of you, or that's, you know, unusual? What was their sort of feedback?
I mean, it happens at a surprisingly early age, right? If I hadn't explicitly been sent to this Women in Engineering event at the age of 15 or whatever it was, would I have gone into a STEM field at all? I don't know, because it just, nobody ever explicitly said, no, Sarah, technology isn't for you. But a lot of the cultural things pushed me that way anyway. And so you get a wide variety, like you get you get some amazing peers, you get some amazingly supportive peers, you know, great friends. I have like lots of great male friends. You also get people who say, every time you mess up, they say, this is why women shouldn't do physics. You know, you also have to just prove it again. And this is a thing that drives me crazy about so much that is aimed at you know, women in data, women in technology type things, aims at like, you know, how to conquer your imposter syndrome. But a really great way to get imposter syndrome in the first place is for have people to treat you like an imposter, right? If every time I walk into a room, I have to go through the gatekeeping, I have to go through the quiz, oh, you like Star Wars? What's Darth Vader's middle name? I know that's a ridiculous example. Darth Vader doesn't have a middle name. I feel the need to tell you that I actually know that, because someone's going to say, isn't it ridiculous that she thinks Darth Vader has a middle name? I like to think it's something like Paul, Darth Paul Vader. You know, but there is this gatekeeping, and that does tend to happen in sort of techie nerd cultures anyway. It happens to men too. It happens to women more. And that happens in, I have to be over prepared for everything. I can't not know how this function works. I can't not know this bit of technology, because that is evidence that women don't know technology.
And just as a matter of interest, in back to your training, you know, when you're delivering training again, do you bump into, when you know, when you arrive on the first day and you walk in, are you aware that some people go like, well, you know, what's going on? And do you again have to sort of prove yourself in that environment, or because the company's already hired, you know, and they know that it's somebody coming, they respect you because they know that you know what you're doing, because otherwise the company wouldn't be paying for it?
Yeah, I mean, you start to build a reputation, but I'm also not joking. I do walk into a room credentials first. I do introduce myself as, I'm Dr. Sarah Schlobohm, and I tell you how I have a PhD in particle physics, so you know I'm smart. And that's all crafted based on experience, right? It's all true, but it's all been tuned to let you know that, no, yes, look at me, I do have technical credentials, you should take me seriously. I have to do that every time. And my male colleagues get to turn up, especially if they have a posh enough accent, right? That's a different problem we need to solve. But you know, it's and it's a balance of trying to fix that for the future and working with what I already have, you know, what skills I've already learned, and you know, not getting down by it as well.
Okay, so maybe as we finish, in terms of things that could be changed, you'd like to see. I mean, if you know, if you were able, you're in charge for the, you know, for a day or a week or whatever, and you could say,
I'd
right,
like to
we're going to do
everything. Let me go.
Yeah. Okay. Well, no, but in terms of what you could think obvious fixes, what one or two things would you say would be great if we can all do this or not do that? Or...
I mean, I'd like to change the sort of stereotype of what an IT nerd is to begin with, you know, in every aspect. It's not just the guys from the IT crowd. It's a great show, but it's not like, that's not the only view of it. It's not just for nerds. It's not for a particular kind of nerd. We need diversity in every area, from different backgrounds, from, you know, different, you know, socioeconomic backgrounds. We need, you build better data products if you have more diversity of thought into it. So just having those teams full of different perspectives, including mine, but including other areas, if I could just make that happen, I think that would, it wouldn't solve problems, but it would make people realize there are problems. I had a fantastic experience. So when I was at PwC, my old boss set up lean-in circles, and lean-in circles are a great way for women to connect and sort of do this, share advice with each other. I sort of called them group therapy for business women. And one of the senior men came along, and he hadn't realized that it was a women's focused event. And he was really taken aback. He was standing there in the queue for coffee, and he was like, you know, he was like, oh, wow, I hadn't realized this. Wow, I feel really out of place here. Do I belong? You know, and he's vocalizing all these thoughts. And I just kind of looked at him, and I was like, yeah, welcome to my life. And and that really clicked for him. And if I could give every man that experience, it would
turn the tables for a day or
yeah,
two.
I think it would, because it's, yeah, I think you need more female role models. I'm trying to be one. I hope lots more women will join me.
Okay, that's lovely. It's been fascinating to chat, and thanks for sharing your thoughts. So Sarah, thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
That's all right. Hope that's all right. Hope I haven't been too feisty.
No, lovely. Thank you very much.
Thanks.